Hi guys, this is Melanie. I'm here with a build I just finished today and I was really excited about it, so I wanted to share it right away. I went to record this narration and I realized that half of the video hadn't been recording. So you only get to see the first half of this being built, which is a shame because the last half was my favorite. But I included screenshots so you can at least see what it looked like. So I started out wanting to make like a modern build because I've done a lot of traditional builds lately and like period builds and things that look like they're from old England and stuff. So I wanted to do something modern, which I'm not really good at, apparently, because I ended up actually just making a stack of books instead, because as I was piling all these on, I realized that's what it looked like, a stack of books, and I thought that'd be really cool. So I went through and I made the wall heights different for each level, so it would look like the books were different thickness as well as different sizes. And I'm really glad we can put rooms on an angle because I really think that helps this look more realistic, so that I can have one book that's not perfectly straight. And I really like books. I like reading, so this felt appropriate, and it's for a library, so it really was appropriate. What I finally decided to do, I was trying to figure out how to make it look like there were a bunch of pages, so I finally decided to use the siding because there are so many horizontal lines. It looks like pages of a book. And then right here I'm working on the spines, and I always like to put yellow whenever I do a group of things because I feel like yellow is the one color that like lightens something up and pulls it all together. It's not my favorite color, but I feel like it's pretty essential, which after I say that is kind of silly because it's yellow now, but actually the book ends up being kind of a yellow orange, and I don't think orange is one of the essential colors, but I think it ended up looking all right. And then I was just going through trying to figure out if there was any other wallpaper I was missing out on that would be better for the pages of the book, but I decided to stick with what I had. And then I used different things for the roofs. I used tiles for the second story, and for the first story it's like the play floor you would put under a playground for little kids. I used that, and then I used grass on the third floor, and I ended up changing it to more of like a lime green. And then for the top floor I used tiles as well. And the top book is definitely my favorite. It's not my favorite color, but I really like the way it turned out. And I got to decorate the top of the book because it was the book at the top of the stack, so you would be able to see the title, and that was really fun. So now I've got all the final colors for the books, and I spent a while trying to figure out how to make these books look more three-dimensional so that the front cover and back cover would stick out farther than the pages do, but I couldn't figure out how to make it work without making the books on top of it look weird. I even tried putting a roof in a second on the first floor, but roofs don't go completely flat, so it would have looked just like a demented book. So in the end, after like messing around with everything and not being able to figure it out, and when I could get something to like make a little lip so it would look more realistic, then I did it in the front too, which books don't stick out farther in the spines. That would be weird. So it just wasn't working out, so I ended up making them just flat, and they look kind of boring and not very three-dimensional, but I like the way they turned out. So now I was just putting in the doors. At this point I was thinking maybe I would just put in like one door and no windows because I didn't want to ruin the look of the books that I had just made. But then I was like, that would be a very depressing library, like underground bunker library, which, you know, I like underground bunkers. I've done a build of that, but not for a library. But I didn't like the look of these doors. The doors match the color pretty well, but it's just kind of like, oh look, there's a bunch of weird shaped boxes and some doors at the bottom. I kind of wanted to disguise it more, so I ended up putting them in between those two, the lines on the spine. Like they're like leather lines where you can like put the author's name and the title of the book. And then I put up a sign here, and that's supposed to be the title of the book. I didn't really know how I was going to do the titles of the books, but I ended up just using the random storefront signs we have and just pretending like those were different names. And then I finally came up with a way to make windows. So I went through and just put in a bunch of these windows that have a bunch of horizontal slats, and I think it turned out really well. Like from far away it looks a little distorted because of all the lines, but I think it still looks like pages. I think it was a very good solution. I only did it on a couple levels, and then I managed to sneak some windows in on the levels I didn't put those slidey windows. So every level has at least one window. And I thought that from the inside, these windows with the slats would look horrible. Like you wouldn't be able to see out very well. It'd be like peeking through someone's blinds. But it actually lets in a lot more light than I thought. And so I went through and decided to center each window so that there was a little space on top and a little space on bottom. So it would look more like there was a front and back cover of the book. But first, I finished doing the spines for the rest of the book. And I know not all books have those little like leather lines on the spines of the books, but I really wanted to put them in these books because I just feel like it is a good way to emphasize what it is. It's kind of like a little marker of a book, a typical book. So I'm putting windows there on the top story. Going through and centering all of them took a while because I had to use, move objects, and my hands are pretty shaky, so I would like try to put a window in just right, and my hand would jerk, and it would like go up to the next floor, and it didn't really do that. It wasn't that bad, but it was kind of a mess, and it took a while. But watching it is lovely. Look how fast I am. Just zipping right through that like it's no big deal, which wasn't happening in reality, but that's okay. And then all those people standing around in there, those are the people who were in the library before I decided to demolish it, and they're just standing there like, what happened? I was on the computer and now I'm in this weird room and it's changing all around me, and sometimes furniture gets put on top of me so I have to move. But they work it out. They work it out in the end. So now I'm working on the top book, which I said before was my favorite book. And I ended up using those kind of different pillars. I think they look very 70s-ish to me. But I ended up using those because I liked how they were completely vertical. And I realized in order to put... Oh, I liked these pillars, sorry. I had a little person run in and I had to push pause really quick. But I like these pillars because they were just straight down and they didn't like bow in and bow out like some of the other pillars do. And I realized in order to put them in, it took me a while to figure out, you have to put a floor underneath them, like on the higher levels. Otherwise you can't put pillars on the outside. It took me a while. And then here I'm just working on the title, and I decided to use these little lights because I'd seen someone else do it in another build. And I thought it was such a great idea. And I was just going to put like a few here and there to kind of symbolize what letters I wanted to use. But I ended up going back. Sorry, my little boy decided to barge in the room again. But so hopefully there wasn't too much noise as he did that. I tried to pause it as quick as I could. But like I was saying, I ended up putting these lights really close together because I thought it looked nicer. And when I was trying to decide the title of a book to choose, I ended up choosing Emma because it's only 4 letters. And that sounded like a good thing after I'd realized how long it was going to take. And also it's my twin sister's favorite book, so I kind of did it because every time I see Emma, it just reminds me of her, and so I wanted to kind of put it on there. I ended up putting little lily pads to kind of balance out the letters because they were a little crooked, and I really like them because they were flat, but they looked decorative, and yeah, it just looked like it part of the book. And then here I'm slapping in all the bookshelves I decided to put them all in and then decide what color to use, which was really silly because I could have just picked a color and put them all down with the right color, but instead I had to go back and change all of them. And I was just trying to figure out how I was going to work it. I think ideally I would have wanted to put books on the perimeter of this build, but like I said, I don't like to cover windows. And in libraries, they're not on the perimeter always either, so I just kind of made some aisles. Aisle. That word is spelled weird. And I put some bookshelves on the top floor, and I did put like random things in each of the bookshelves to make them look different from each other, like a tissue box or memento. And I forgot to do it for these bookshelves, but I don't know if I would actually, because that would have taken a very long time to do. And you can't really see them when you're looking straight on. You just kind of see that, oh, that's a row of books. So it's all right. I was fine with it. And I put in a staircase and then just a bunch of little places to sit. I feel like that's what libraries are, like books and seating, and that's about it. And then I wanted to put in the front desk where like you go to get your library card and they're not very friendly, but you have to go anyway. At least that's been my experience. So I decided to use the counters because I really like when people use the curved countertops as a front desk. I think it looks very realistic. And I didn't want random Sims coming behind this desk and just using the computer like Sims do. They'll just use whatever, whoever, and whatever. I couldn't figure out how I was going to prevent that, so I ended up putting a half wall behind the counter and then putting a little fence up so it wasn't tall like a door, but they still couldn't get through. And I went through and tested a lot of the stuff I did, but I forgot to go and test to see if the little gate for the fence would work. So I'm not quite sure if it did or not. But I did get one of my little children's Sims to go through and test everything on the children's floor, which I realized I needed to test more things because I made a build and I didn't test out the pool and one of my Sims drowned. And I didn't even realize it until like 15 minutes later. It was pretty bad. I'm really good at killing Sims, apparently, but not intentionally. Like, some people try really hard. I don't want them to die, and then they just die. It's probably a special skill I have. And it took me a while to decide how I wanted to decorate the front desk, because I know that was like the first thing you'd see, so I wanted it to be kind of a statement. So I did a lot of different things, but when I put the floor down, it deleted all the stuff I had raised up with a 9 key, so it didn't really matter anyway. And I didn't realize it until I was watching this video, so I never went back and put the vases back in. So you can get a picture of what I wanted it to be, not what it ended up being. And then as far as the little computers for the employees, I wanted them to look personalized, like a picture of their family, or like they sat there every day, so they started putting their stuff out. And one of them, the left computer, I put a bunch of nail polish because I figure like she sneaks when there's like a downtime. She like will sneak out the nail polish and paint her nails behind the computer. And you know, I've seen coworkers do that before. They'll just try to like discreetly paint their nails, which you can't really do because it's got a very strong odor. And then if they had purses, I would have put purses down there, but there are no purses in The Sims. So these ladies got backpacks. And that guy, I think, I was trying to figure out how to get that guy out from behind that counter, but he found one of the computers, like I feared, and he just doesn't want to leave. And I can't figure out how to get him out. And then someone else will join him, but I can't lock the door because then the original guy won't be able to get out. I have that problem a lot with locked doors. And then here, I was just putting down like little tiles I like to go through and do the different tiles. I saw Hattie Sims do it one time, and it just like adds a little something something. And I always think I'm going to do like this amazing new design no one's ever thought of before in their life. And then I always do like pretty much the same thing. But that's okay, it works. And I just put it on the border. I figured there wasn't much point to put it down the aisles. Like I tried to do it in a second, but it wouldn't have been straight and everything would have been covered up. So I just did a border on the floor. And I do decorate this front wall. I realized that that front wall, when it's being played, will probably never or hardly ever be up. Like when you're playing The Sims, you don't usually leave all the walls up. And there are some walls that are just pretty much down because that's the front where you want to be looking. So I don't know if anyone will ever actually see the pictures I put up, but I like to know they're there just in case. It makes it look more realistic. And then I put down a bunch of little seating areas so that people can just look out the window. And it's always weird to be looking out the window on ground floor because when people walk by, they just kind of stare at you sitting there. But maybe if you were reading a book and like glancing casually, it would be fine. And then I made sure I saved. I forgot to take out the save part, but I've had things get deleted and it's pretty traumatizing. But when you go back and rebuild them, it goes so much faster and smoother the second time. But it's still not worth it. It's not fun. And then I wanted to put these plants in between the shelves so it looked kind of like it was covering that gap between the bookshelves. So it looked a little more intentional. And then I'm working on the second story here. You get to see the second story pretty much completely finished. And then after that is when my recording shuts off, so you don't get to see the third floor, which is the children's area, and then the top floor, which I end up using as like just like a community space. Like you can study up there, or maybe you can like sign up to use the space to like throw parties or something, or they do like adult classes there, like learn how to do your taxes sort of thing. Or you can like move all the furniture out and have like a prom there or something. Yeah, these were my thoughts as I was making it up there. It's pretty full of furniture though. That'd be a struggle. And I wanted the upstairs to be like the place where people could go and be loud. At the library at the school I went to, there was a no shh zone, so you weren't allowed to say shh in that area of the library. So I imagine the top floor was that area. Like people try to tell you to be quiet and you're like, I'm not going to be quiet. I'm allowed to be loud up here. And then right here I was just trying to figure out what floor to put down. And I struggle a lot with bathrooms, especially when the ceiling or when the wall height is very high. I can't figure out how to get the toilet paper in there because if I just try to stick it in, the doors are in the way, so I have to peek down in, but then the toilet paper ends up like 9 feet off the floor. Who wants to jump up to get their toilet paper? No one. So I was struggling with that, but I kind of figured out eventually. And I like to put paintings in the bathrooms because the bathrooms are a pretty depressing space. So I like to put a little something in there. Again, even if you don't see it, I know it's there. It comforts my soul. And apparently I have a very hard time telling the difference between that man and that lady door. And I didn't realize those doors actually worked, but I was trying to tell a sim to take a shower and it would not do it. And finally I realized that it was a girl's bathroom I was trying to make him go in. So yeah, if that door's there, the sims will not go in if they're boys. And then the right bathroom is the woman's bathroom. I did the women's bathrooms bigger just because I feel like girls' bathrooms are always bigger. Girls might need to use the bathroom more, or just, yeah, they just always need to be a little bigger. And I wanted to put more sinks in, but the way I had laid it out, there were too many doors in the way, so I ended up just getting the 2 sinks. But there is an extra one in like the handicap bathroom. And I did put 2 really big mirrors in the bathroom, which is essential. Because after you go to the bathroom, you gotta like check what you look like in the mirror on the way out. So you know you're looking good for for everybody you might be hanging out with. It's just like a good little thing to do before you leave the bathroom. Look in a full-length mirror. And then after I finish up the bathrooms, I start on this area, and this area ends up being like a place where you would go and study, but everyone has to be quiet. So if you wanted to have some peace and quiet, you could do it on this floor. But if you wanted to work as a group or have a fun time, you would do it on the top floor. And I was kind of having struggles with the layout of this room because I didn't want it to look too full and I didn't want it to look too empty. I think in the end it ends up looking a little empty, but I like to have a lot of stuff in rooms. I don't like there to be wasted space, and in this room there definitely was. But I still think it looks all right. And I remembered at the end of this room that I needed a chess table in order to make this build qualify as a library. So I kind of just throw one in over by the bathrooms, which no one would want to be playing chess right outside of bathrooms probably, because sometimes the odors don't contain themselves. But oh well. And then I put a little plant in the middle of the tables there just to give it some more visual interest. But yeah, the upper 2 floors were my favorites, especially the children's floor. I really tried to put a bunch of different things in there. I know at libraries where there are children's areas, there's usually like a story time place or like puzzles, or you can play with trains. So I wanted to put a bunch of like toys up there in a story time area, as well as like children's books. And then this is where my computer froze up and I cut out the last part. And here are the screenshots. So this is the children's area. I think it just turned out so cute. There are the little desks, and that's a little reading area. It's got grass and the teacher's chair, and then the children sit on the little puffs. And then here's more of the children's computers. And you can just kind of see the dollhouse back there. I actually put in all 3 dollhouses because I love all of them. And now they can choose which one they want to play with. And then there's a table with just clay on it so they can go play with that. And this is the upstairs. So I've got like 2 family room areas, look kind of like a family room, so a big group of people can gather, and then tables and desks, and then a few other little like sitting areas. Just so like any size of group can go up and study, or if you just want to be on your own, you can study there too. But I like the colors. I went just with like blues and purples, and I think they complement each other pretty well. There's that sloth again. You see a lot of that sloth in this build, and that poor guy sitting by the bathrooms. So yeah, you've seen all of these bedrooms, or not bedrooms, all of these rooms, and there's the front desk. And the next shots are the exterior, which I'm just so excited about. I saw Deligracy did like a giant hamburger, and the hamburger was like a hamburger house. And I just think it's great, like making giant objects out of things. It just lets you be so creative. And I like the way it looks just during the day. And I didn't do any landscaping. I just put some trees out back because I wanted the focus to be the books. I didn't want them to be covered up at all. And yeah, there's the Emma on top. I think it turned out so cute. And then I always like to see how everything's situated, especially since you didn't get to see me build it. So I took a screenshot of each level. You can't really see too well, it's kind of far away, but it gives you sort of an idea of what each level looks like. See, that one looks a little sparse. Like, oh hey, where is everything? But that's okay. And then I've got a couple more screenshots and the build is done. If you want to download this, I'll put it up on the gallery. And thank you for watching.